about a month ago, I had the pleasure of doing a video on Guild Wars 1, which had an update for the first time in many, many years. The game itself is 13 years old now. It's on maintenance mode. None of the players that are still back here enjoying this game ever really expected the devs to continue focusing on it. So when about a month ago, they added a very small but interesting update to the graphics engine, it was quite surprising. Well, I mean, I don't really know how to say this, but that update was nothing compared to what just dropped last night. Guild Wars 1 seems to be getting meaty updates again. It seems some devs over Arena are enthusiastically looking back at the game, and I'm going to run you through what they've done. A lot of it, once again, is graphic related, and it's making the game look better than it ever has in the past. So, these are the patch notes. You can see them on screen. I'll break them down for you, starting off with most awesomely the graphics panel. They've added windowed full screen support. I'm actually running this right now. It's the late 2010s at this point. What games don't have windowed full screen support? Well, Guild Wars 1 didn't. Obviously, it came out way back in 05, 06, and they just never gone back to apply this, even though the sequel, Guild Wars 2, has had it for a long time. It's implemented the exact same way as the second game has it, in that it will only register on your primary monitor, not your secondary or tertiary monitors, but still, it's much needed update. There was actually a third-party community-ran tool that was a bit of a grey area offering windowed full screen back for people, but now it is native to the client. So, I mean, yeah, that's pretty cool. You're thinking, that's not enough to get me to reinstall the game, though. You're thinking, well, bear with me. They've also added 8 times MSAA as an anti-aliasing option, which I enabled in the Outpost Xingji Monastery just a second ago. It seemed to lag me a bit, but now that I'm back out in the actual explorable world, Sunqua Vale, it seems to be working very well. So there's 8 times AA now. The game before that had only gone up to 4x. These are obviously now available because PCs are so much better than the last time the devs were ever looking at the graphical capabilities of Guild Wars 1. Next, they did an update to this checkbox down here, use best texture filtering. Now, players of both games will be more than familiar with this. The checkbox itself isn't new. However, on the back end now, should you enable this, this now respects up to 16 times anisotropic filtering. So that's nothing but good stuff. The game isn't going to lag or slow down whatsoever on systems these days, and you get a little bit of extra clarity and detail coming out of all the texture rendering in the game. So that's great, and now you'll notice here too, there is a new advanced checkbox. Now this is the meaty thing. It's kind of weird that it just says advanced. It's not very descriptive at all. Essentially, what this checkbox does is when we click it, it toggles on a bunch of new graphical things that's never existed before and they've just put on. So if you remember my video or the update from about a month ago that had caught so many of your attentions, that never actually hit the in-game user interface. That was kind of wonkily enabled through command line arguments, and obviously not everyone's particularly savvy with that or has to go through that mess. The update itself, if you remember, was about improving the texture quality and visual fidelity of long-distance vistas. Well, this advanced checkbox is rolling that in. So no longer does anyone need to mess with command lines. They just check this box on and you get all the benefits of that update everyone was so excited about a little bit back. But in addition to that, when we click advanced, it also does some other totally fresh stuff beyond even what everyone was so hyped about. So check this out here on the patch notes. They say when you turn this on, model LODs will always use the highest available LOD, regardless of distance, including the disabling of all the imposter models. That was last month's update, which I've already described in full. Then also, check this out. The max draw distance will be doubled. Ground cover vegetation draw distance will be pushed out even further. That means pretty much anywhere you go in-game at all, where you've got some distant line of sight, you'll now be able to see a lot further. So I'm here at the Sunqua Vale. I know the gameplay's not been too entertaining just yet, because I think it demonstrates it perfectly, alright? So this is without advanced on. We'll go first person, and you can sort of get this familiar vista all of us old players hopefully have very fond nostalgic memories of. But if you look very carefully, you see the trees. They all have the old LOD billboards on them. They've got the nasty looking textures, the imposters, and it all looks a bit grey and hazy out there. Also, you'll notice the detail on the ground gets kind of really nasty. If we go into our options and we click advanced, and because this isn't game now, you can toggle and see the difference very easily. When I click this, oh, isn't it beautiful? It changes everything. So we get the beautiful, nice, pristine, clean trees. All the buildings we get full resolution and detail from. You can make out each individual tile on the roofs all the way back there. Toggling off again just so you guys can see. You see the pixelated sort of nasty looking mess back there. And on again finally here. What a cool update. This affects everywhere. So if you go back to Prophecies areas such as Anvil Rock, if you go to Eye of the North areas, anywhere in Nightfall, you're now going to be able to see a lot further and pick out a lot more detail. It's kind of phenomenal. And for the rest of the video here, I'm just going to cut through some exciting, interesting locations I want to see the graphics comparisons of. Some people online have started compiling some of their favorite before and after views, but not enough yet, guys. So if you've got any cool places, please type them out down below in the comments, because I want more reason to go back and explore original Prophecies areas. They do also add here that terrain LODs will almost always draw in highest. And they also say, lastly, note that full changes won't take effect until you fully change maps. That's true of Guild Wars 2 also, for what it's worth. So that little toggle on and off you saw just there, that's not even the full dramatic difference that you'll see. You actually have to load out of the map and go back in to get all the changes. So that's great. You might think that that alone, based on how excited everyone was last month at just the tiny little slice of that, you might think that alone is enough to justify lots of people looking back at the game. But they've done even more for the patch notes as well. This is just bizarre, guys. It's freaking 2018. So what do they say here? Well, for general, they've increased the maximum number of active mini pets that are allowed in outposts. This likely is because on Reddit, a member of the community, a Guild Wars 1 player, said, hey, can you change this? And a dev just said, hey, all right, fine. So they've done that. They've updated that. Obviously, having all the little mini models around isn't going to drag down people's cards and whatnot. So I suppose they don't see a reason to have the limit that was at once upon a time in there. For the friends list, they've got an update. The maximum number of friends and ignored players has been doubled to 100 friends. And you can now ignore 20 people. Next, they have some bug fixes. And the first one here is really interesting to me. It says, fixed an issue where your character's LOD drops when zooming out the camera. Does that mean if I zoom the camera out too far in the past, it would reduce the quality of my character because the camera's moved too far away? That's hilarious if so. Or are they just saying that they don't want the camera to affect billboard swapping whatsoever in the distance? I'm not entirely sure on that one, but it's fixed nonetheless. They also say fix an issue where the game client became unresponsive when it was minimized or sent to the background. That is a notorious issue that I personally don't think I've ever hit, but you hear people talking about all the time online, so even more reason to be happy. And then they round out the patch as well. It still goes on with some social changes and features. So number one, on the party search, you can now report people who are on party search through the party search dialogue. And then they have new chat options. So check this out. A new option has been added to suppress whisper messages from players that don't meet the following criteria. And what this is essentially, guys, is anti-bot stuff. So listen, they say if you are not a party member, a friend, an active trading partner, or a recent party or team member, you can now have those people suppressed. And what that means is bot accounts won't be spamming you for whatever reason when they're in different instances, when they're far away from you and whatnot. So that cleans that up. They also say you may now report directly in the whisper chat window without needing to type the target's character name. They say reporting players is still restricted to the same district that you're in. And that's good because otherwise you'd have people ages away spamming mass reports. And lastly, they even have custom chat filters. These are now possible, but to use the feature, you have to create a chatfilter.ini text file and place that in your users, username, documents, Guild Wars folder. And then when you type in that, you can use filters. So the layout is as follow: user filter 1, censor, user filter 2, suppress. So, really quite incredible there, guys. Another Guild Wars 1 update. You, like me, might be scratching your head now and wondering, why is this happening for Guild Wars 1? We saw a minor update and now a much bigger one. Who's taking the time to do this? How long does this take? Can we expect much more? Well, we do have answers on that. So, looking back over to the Guild Wars 1 subreddit, which I seriously recommend you guys check out. I'll have a link to the description for you all. This is really what's galvanized a lot of this activity, and there's so much love and support going on over there. There are some dev comments talking about how long it took them to implement this, and partially as well why they've implemented this after so many years of the game just on maintenance mode. And so that comes from Bill Freist, a not very well-known name, who says this: Ain't Bill here. I don't actually have a real Reddit account for work purposes, mostly because I'm too lazy to go have one set up. I would estimate I spent about 14 hours of programming time on this, and close to the same amount of time to test and coordinate testing of things over the last 24 hours. There was also some help from a QA member yesterday and today to hammer on this before the release, which was probably around 8 hours of their time. So quite a lot of time spent on this. And then Bill also says, I think Steven, SCW, who we've spent a great deal of time talking about, he's kind of the main one we think of in terms of Guild Wars 1 development at the moment. I think Steven also spent about half a day to help get some of our back-end servers and the database updated in preparation for this update. This includes our database server and chat server to support the increased friends list size. Keep in mind, most of this time was spent after hours on my own time, so almost none of this work was on company time. Bill. So, there's your answer, guys. Why is Guild Wars 1 getting updates again? It's because some of the devs are passionate about it and did it outside of regular work hours. I mean, there's not much more you can ask for as a person in love with a 13-year-old game, right? That's incredible. I guess the main takeaway from this post, aside from just being extremely thankful and wondering to ourselves when we may have spent an extra 12 hours at work unpaid, is that the game probably should still be considered as in maintenance mode. As exciting as this stuff is, it seems to exist purely on the passions and enthusiasms of a few individuals, rather than any company-wide change in philosophy. So as much as I hate to accept this, we might not have too much more to look forward to. I guess it depends, but certainly larger scope stuff like skill balance and whatnot, we're probably still not going to see much of. The game plan now as a community, guys, is to keep the devs passionate by bribing them with cupcakes and stuff. Trust me, it'll work. There was another post as well shortly after this where someone was still confused. They said, can someone explain to me what happened recently with the recent uptick in ArenaNet involvement and support for Guild Wars 1? To which we got a very good response from SCW, who kind of sums up the past year-ish. Not even year, really. But he says this, that it all started with our data center in Frankfurt, which blew up. Almost literally, the UPS system created a big energy spike and fried some of our equipment. Never mind the story about the nearby unexploded bomb from World War II. I moved the Guild Wars servers at this point to the United States, and then started paying attention to this subreddit to see if anyone noticed. Because even for me, even over our VPN to Europe and back, the game was working fine. SCW says, well, people did notice. So as I moved our servers into AWS and put our servers back in the EU, I kept paying attention to the subreddit. As I moved the servers, I noticed a lot of cruft had piled up over the years, so I fixed what I could. There's a lot of passion and joy here for the game, and it inspired me to keep digging into ping problems and other problems. And Bill was inspired when I talked to him about some of the problems people highlight here, and he dug in and figured a lot of them out. Part of what had become crafty over the years were the reporting tools and bots and RMT detection tools. Some are fixed and some still need love. So excitingly here, guys, he ends by saying, plus, I'd really like to figure out a way to make the game easy for people and inherently hard for bots without having to have customer service do a lot of work. Here it is. He says, I'd like this game to run for many years. So, that's really what triggered it all. It was all just about a server exploding, the server moving, got one of the very few people still officially responsible for Guild Wars 1 looking, engaged with the community, and did this for the community. So, many thanks to Bill, many thanks to SCW, anyone else who worked on this, and let's hope that they keep going, right, guys? Obviously, there's no obligation for them to, but I wonder what else they may have on their minds, because much of what you're looking in the patch notes here is just in direct response to requests that people have made. There was a big community event that started in Guild Wars 1 as well lately, where hundreds of people swarmed to the marketplace, the subreddit super live. It's seen a real uptick. I've been told that the last video we did notably affected the economy, just because that last graphics update had come out and so many people had decided to give it a shot, and well, this one kind of dwarfs that. I'll finish up this video with just a couple of other little points. There was another fascinating thread from SCW here where he says, hey, would anyone like a bigger map capacity for Kamadan? So if you guys don't know, Kamadan is kind of the main place the remaining players in Guild Wars 1 still hang out and do their trading and their socializing and so forth. And so, in his own words, he says, Kamadan tends to be full, as you know, and sometimes overflows into another map. I can experiment with increasing the player capacity for Kamadan so that people tend to get into the same map. What would you all like this, or do you like the sense of community you get from a smaller map? And mostly people said, yeah, go for it. So he says, okay, it's been increased. And that also was another aspect of this patch that isn't in the notes. He says, as I type, there are 2 districts, but as people move in, they should consolidate into just one. I'll keep an eye on it to make sure nothing breaks over the increased size. And in fact, since I'm in game right now still, shall we see how many districts there are for Kamadan? On America, English, yeah, there's just 1 district. That means that everyone is all in this one map, and you'll just see tons of players. I don't know what he's increased the size to, but they're not rendered in right now, but all these different character models all appearing, and you'll probably find that local chat, I mean, look at this is crazy, is very active, and map chat and people talking to each other because we've all consolidated into one single place now. So that's nice. In that same thread, they are asked by the community, will this only affect Kamadan, and will it remain so with holidays? They're the one other time of year that the other cities could potentially benefit from this, and Kamadan also happens to be one. Thanks for all the attention. Even small changes make the game feel fresh and alive. And SEW says, all towns are bigger now, except those that won't be, smiley face. I'll explain. By default, all towns are now bigger. However, I noticed some overrides in the code. Kamadan at Winter's Day has a much more severe limit, probably because of some event that happens there. So there will be times of year, even when the same map is smaller. So yeah, all map limits are also bigger, and that's pretty easy to miss since it wasn't officially documented on the post. So, and there you have it, guys. Even more love for Guild Wars 1. There's never been a better, genuinely, since Guild Wars 2 came out, there has not been a better opportunity and time to get back into this game. Maybe earn rewards for the sequel, learn what it was all about, because it looks better, it's more populated than it has been in Christ knows how long, and there might even be more updates on the horizon, depending on how generous these devs feel and how much out-of-work hours they put into it. Do check out the threads down below. Thanks very much for watching, and Christ, it's 2018, but if they do more, I'll have more videos for you on it. Cheers, everyone. See you next time.